You should always land directly under your body, under your center of mass, to have an efficient running technique. If you only heard one thing about efficient running technique and how you should do when you run, it's probably that you should land directly under your body. As usual, it's not that simple. Firstly, I wonder, what do you mean by under you? Is it under your body in general, or is it under your hip, or maybe under your center of mass? But let's start by establishing the definition of lands as the place where you put your shoe on the ground. But that place is not the same place as where you put the most weight on your foot. From the time your foot is placed on the ground, it takes a tiny moment, we're talking about microseconds here, before you put the most force on your foot. That means if you put your foot down so it touches the ground exactly under your body, you will have put the maximum force on your foot when it is behind your center of mass. And this will not be optimal, as it will cause you to accelerate until you fall. It is when the force is greatest on the foot that the foot should be under your center of mass. And this means that your foot should be put down slightly in front of your center of mass. Well, how far in front of you should you then put your foot down to be optimal? Well, it depends on mainly how fast you run. After your foot touches the ground, your body will move forward over your foot. If you run really slowly, you don't have time to move your body that far before the maximum force is put on your foot. And this means that the place where your foot touches the ground should be just a tiny bit in front of your center of gravity, just a tiny bit. If you run at a faster pace, however, the body has time to move more, which means that it is perfectly okay to touch the ground with your foot a little further in front of your body, because you have time to move your body forward relatively far before you have maximum force on your foot. If you look at this picture, my foot is in the position it will go now straight down into the ground, while my body will move from the line there marked with number 1 to the line marked number 2. The faster I run, the greater the distance between line 1 and line 2. And this is why some elite runners can look like they put their feet down way too far in front of them, but then, thanks to their high pace, they have time to move the body so far forward it will still be a great landing because the body has moved, so when you have maximum force on your foot, it is under your center of mass. If you or I would have put our feet down as far as front as those runners do with our normal pace, it would probably have been bad and classified as serious overstriding, as we don't run as fast and we don't have the time to move the body the distance is need to go before we have maximum pressure on the foot.
I use 3D cameras and a software designed to measure runners' energy efficiency. And the green zone on this bar indicates where the program thinks it's optimal to land in relation to the center of mass when running at 640 per kilometer, that's about 1044 per mile. As you can see, the software thinks that you should land at a maximum of about 5 to 6 centimeters, about 2 inches in front of the center of mass. But if you run at 309 per kilometer, 505 minutes per mile, the optimal zone is much further forward. We can, for example, look at tests from these two runners. The one on the left has landed 201 millimeter in front of his center of mass, 7.9 inches, which is indicated by the blue arrow. And then we have the runner to the right, who has landed 167 millimeters in front of his center of mass, about 6.5 inches, which is obviously more under the body than the runner to the left. And since you should strive to land more under the body, the runner to the right should be the one with the best running technique, right? Well, no, that is not the case. We can now look at where the green zones are located. As I said, the green zones indicate how far in front of you the center of mass that is a good place to land. The runner to the left that runs at 309 per kilometer, 505 per mile, and that makes the landing 201 millimeters in front of his center of mass, very close to the green zone. The runner to the right who lands more under the body, 167 millimeters, is very far from the green zone, where it is located when you run at the pace of 640 per kilometer, 1044 per mile. So you can't just look at where a runner lands in relation to the center of mass. You also have to take the pace in account.
The foot should not land, which is not touch the ground, exactly under your body or center of mass, as this means that the force on the foot will be applied too late. How far in front of you place your foot, you touches the ground, depends on how fast you run. The higher the pace, the further in front of you it is okay for your foot to touch the ground and you to land. But the thing about that all runners should land straight under their center of mass is simply not true. Look at these runners, for instance. I truly hope you liked that video, and if you did, please click the like button and maybe also the subscribe button. And feel free to check out all the other content I have here on my channel. And maybe you are also interested in my online course. You'll find it at fredrikzillén.com.